Welcome to the Explainer. When most of us think about education inside a correctional facility, we kind of picture it as just a way to pass the time, right? Sitting around in a library, maybe paging through a book. But the reality, especially when we look at the data and the strategy coming out of Delaware, is totally different. What we're actually looking at is a critical, highly structured public safety tool. Okay, let's dive into this and explore Delaware's unified model for correctional education and reentry. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to follow the actual chronological journey of an individual moving through Delaware's system. We'll start by looking beyond passing time, then explore the unified advantage, peek inside the classrooms, check out the marketable skills being taught, face the reentry reality, and finally look at the public safety payoff.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Beyond Passing Time. We really need to flip that common preconception that prison education is just busy work meant to kill the clock. Delaware's Department of Correction literally builds this right into their mission. They are focused on public safety, successful reentry, and actual rehabilitative services. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the complex overlapping challenges individuals actually faced when they enter the system. For someone in jail or prison, education isn't just about grabbing a diploma. It's a targeted intervention. We're talking about tackling low literacy, incomplete schooling, a severely limited job history, and honestly, the weak confidence that comes from years of instability. By targeting these specific barriers, the system supports order inside the walls, sure, but more importantly, it prepares people for real responsibilities once they're released. And that brings us to a massive shift in thinking. The old, outdated model, it treated education as this sort of standalone service, basically an occasional add-on if you were lucky. But Delaware's current public materials consistently frame it differently. They use an integrated, continuous pipeline model. It's a core piece of a much broader reentry strategy, meaning what you learn on the inside is directly mapped to exactly what you'll need on the outside. Let's zoom out a bit for Section 2, the unified advantage. To understand how Delaware actually pulls off this pipeline model, we have to look at the system level. Delaware operates what's called a unified correctional system. Basically, the state manages individuals from pretrial detention all the way through incarceration and right into community supervision, so probation and parole, under one single department. Having everything under one roof is absolutely crucial. It drastically cuts down on administrative red tape and makes connecting the education someone gets inside to the support they receive after release so much easier. So, let's look at how this builds into a cohesive journey. On day 1, during intake, educational assessments happen right away to figure out literacy levels and build an individualized program plan. Then, over the months or years of incarceration, that specific treatment and education plan is put into action. And finally, post-release, the exact same overseeing department manages the community supervision. The continuity of services is seamless from start to finish. There are no handoffs where someone can fall through the cracks. Moving right along to Section 3, inside the classrooms. So what does that middle phase actually look like? Well, this number right here, 30, is incredibly significant. According to the state's Family Handbook, more than 30 Delaware Department of Education teachers and support staff work physically inside Delaware prison facilities to provide instruction. That's a huge deal. Delaware isn't just sliding workbooks under a door. They use a serious statewide public instructional model with actual public education staff delivering the lessons. As you can see here, education in this system is strictly tied to individualized assessments. It is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all approach. Take a look at the variety of target learners. If someone needs foundational math and reading, they go into adult basic education. If they want diploma-oriented learning, there's the Groves Adult High School program. There are specific avenues for special education, daily life skills, and vocational training for folks who are ready to gear up for the job market. It creates this highly structured path forward based entirely on what the individual actually needs to succeed. Now let's shift gears to Section 4, marketable skills. Because academics, they're really only part of the equation. Learning in a correctional setting can't just be school-like. Behavioral skills are absolutely essential if individuals are actually going to use their academic learning successfully out in the real world. That's why Delaware links education with cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. They run these classes in every single prison facility and community corrections center. The topics cover things like anger management, recognizing destructive thinking patterns, parenting, and making better decisions. You really have to build that solid personal foundation to support the academic structure. And this brilliantly illustrates the highly practical, market-oriented programming they offer. the Masonry Training Pathway. It's certified by the National Center for Construction Education and Research, and notice just how specific it is. It takes learners from core craft skills and bricklaying all the way to reading complex construction plans. Employers out there want proof of skills, reliability, and good work habits. This program gives individuals a highly marketable skill so they have an immediate way to earn an income the second they're released. But, eventually, the classroom time ends. Those masonry walls built in practice need to translate to the real world. So the essential question we have to ask is, what happens when it's time to actually leave the facility? Which brings us to Section 5, the re-entry reality. This is the critical phase where all that in-prison preparation must align perfectly with outside the walls reality. To make this transition actually work, Delaware leans on a massive amount of case management coordination. The Correctional Reentry Commission ensures continuity of services by aligning multiple state agencies. We're talking about the Department of Correction, Education, Labor, Health and Social Services, and various housing partners all working together. When a person transitions to probation or parole, this entire web of agencies is right there to catch them and guide them. I want to share this quote from the source material because it's honestly one of the most powerful takeaways of this entire explainer. Learning is most effective when it connects to a realistic reentry plan. Education and reentry are not separate entities. They are the exact same pipeline. The educational progress made inside a facility continues to matter immensely after release, simply because the community-based support structures are fully aware of what was achieved on the inside. Finally, let's look at the big picture in Section 6, the public safety payoff. We've talked a lot about the individual, but how do these programs benefit the broader public? Well, the core strategy is pretty logical. Equipping people with better options reduces risk. If people leave custody with better literacy, a credential, and actual job skills, they are fundamentally better prepared to avoid reoffending. Now, crucially, the source documents do acknowledge that no single program guarantees success. Outcomes always vary based on someone's history, their health, housing, and of course the broader economy. But there is a very clear stated belief here that education is one of these single most useful tools available for improving those long-term outcomes and ultimately protecting the public. So the crucial point is that this small state has managed to build an incredibly practical pathway from custody to community. Let's quickly recap why Delaware's model really stands out. They've got a unified oversight department, which ensures continuity. Their education is assessment-based, not just a blind one-size-fits-all. They offer a robust mix of both academic and vocational training. They actually put real public education staff inside the facilities, and they coordinate across multiple agencies to make sure reentry is realistic and fully supported. Ultimately, everything we've looked at today is guided by this simple but profound philosophy: learning should help people return to the community with more options than they had when they entered custody. It is an investment not just in the individual, but in the community they will inevitably return to. Which leaves us with an important question to reflect on. How does your own state handle the journey from custody back to the community? Are they treating education as just a way to pass the time, or are they utilizing a unified, structured pipeline to build a safer community? It's definitely something worth exploring. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.